Hello, everyone. This is Max Power, and you're listening to another episode of Lost Inside the podcast. Today, we're going to be speaking with my daughter.
Hello, I'm Gabby.
So, Gabby unfortunately has inherited some mental afflictions from me, and she's had to learn how to deal with them as opposed to how I had to learn how to deal with them back in the 80s and 90s. My daughter was born in 2000. She is a millennial baby, right on it. So, Gabby, how old would you say you were when you first started feeling depression states or any mental affliction states?
Probably between 9 and 10.
And what was your first memory of any of these afflictions?
One of my best friends at the time telling me that I was always negative and super sad. And it just made me feel really alone, that nobody else understood. That I wasn't okay all the time.
Yeah, that you got from me. I can tell you that. I first seen it when you were about 2 years old. The very first time I saw it, we were living in a 2-story home. You would sit at the top of the stairs, just staring down at the door, and just sitting in silence. Didn't want to be bothered, didn't want to move, and sometimes you would go to your room and sit there in silence as well. So that's how I knew you had inherited my afflictions. Something I found out later, that like me, you used to cut. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know exactly how it started. I do remember I was in, I want to say 6th grade. It was really light and easy healing cuts from a pencil sharpener. It did progress into deeper cuts that some I still have scarring for 7 years later. I want to say I stopped around maybe 15 or 16. But I did have one. It was a few slip ups here or there, or it was one cut, two, never more than that. I want to say that, as maybe silly as it sounds, the bands I listen to and the music that I use and the art that I do is what kind of keeps me from getting back to that point.
On Instagram, I noticed that you had posted when you graduated high school about the long journey and about music. Like me, you're an avid music lover. Unlike me, you're a very talented artist. You can draw very well. You made mention to cutting as your sobriety. You listened to certain bands, and that allowed you the outlet to stop wanting to cut yourself. That's a very interesting take on it. I've never heard it listed as the time period of not cutting as your sobriety. I can tell you, coming from a family of addicts, sobriety can be tough. It can come in many different forms for many different reasons. The one that really affects my family is drinking, but this is something different. How did the bands help you, and which bands would you say helped you?
And so for me, it was the music would allow me to not feel alone. Um, but it wasn't just like the songs, the lyrics. I'm someone who likes to dive deep into what I love. Um, and I absolutely loved the music, the bands, and to me, they weren't just bands, they were actual people. They did interviews about their lives, and it made me feel less alone because these band members were my age and had done the same thing, were cutters, were suicidal, and they made it. They did what they loved. They got to a point where they recognized it's okay not to be okay and just kept moving forward. They found their own little quirks to keep themselves going, and that was what I felt really inspirational. As for what bands, the list has definitely got a lot longer over the years. Off the top of my head, Black Veil Brides has definitely been one of the most. Also, one of my first bands that really I got into that type of genre of music. Falling in Reverse is another one. The lead singer for that one has been through a hell of a lot of different types of issues, and just kind of him bouncing back from everything was really inspirational. Sleeping with Sirens is another really good one. Their lyrics are very meaningful, and just sometimes when I don't know what I'm feeling, I could just play a song and be like, that's it, that's exactly right on the dot what I'm feeling. Palaye Royale is one that I've listened to in the recent years. I found them through a movie, which was also a really good movie. Some of the other bands are just more of the popular in the like emo scene, I want to say. Older bands like My Chemical Romance, even of the more of the rocker type deal, just kind of is a distracting feel. So like AC/DC, I can't think off the top of my head. Just a lot of Motley Crue. That was another one that I really liked. Those of the more of the 80s punk rock bands were more of this was my fun time, so I would distract myself by blasting that music and just dancing or listening to it while I draw, something to keep me from thinking about what was happening.
And like most teenagers, we all have been to our different concerts. What are some of the concerts you've been to and your experiences at going to these concerts?
Concerts are more of a recent thing. I didn't really have the opportunity to go, so I missed out on things like Warped Tour, which seemed like such an amazing experience. Concerts I've been to was Ghost of Ohio tour with Andy Black, and I was able to get a VIP pass to meet him, which was probably one of the best moments of my life because he's been someone who I believe to be inspirational. For those who don't know, Andy Black is the front man for Black Veil Brides, and I have idolized this man since I was about 9. I was also recently able to go to the Rockstar Disrupt Festival on its first kickoff, which was really nice. I got to meet Kellen Quinn twice, which was also really cool. He's the front man for Sleeping with Sirens. I met Andy's wife, Juliet. I got to see a lot of the bands that I'd listened to for a while play live, which is an amazing experience. You always only hear them just over music, and it's just the songs, and in between sets they make jokes and they really connect with the audience. They really get involved. I was able to participate in a circle pit for both for Sleeping with Sirens and then one of the other bands that were there. Memphis Mayfire, that's the other one. I was able to participate in a mosh pit for them as well, which was also really fun. It feels kind of like a adrenaline high. I remember I got back in my car after both concerts, and a friend of mine that I went with me to both was just laughing at me because I just kept screaming, "Oh my God," and the F word over and over because I had just met people that I've idolized since I was in middle school or younger, and it's just meeting the people that I think have saved my life was just an amazing honor. It's really fun. I plan to and hope to attend more concerts for the people. I like that it supports them and keeps them going. I know it helps them as much as it helps me.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back and we'll learn more about these supporting artists and how Gabby actually does support them. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Lost inside.
And we're back. Again, this is the Lost Inside podcast. I'm your host, Max Power, and today we're talking with my daughter, Gabby. Now, when we last left off, you said that you supported these bands. There is something that you can always be seen wearing no matter what, and it's a bunch of bracelets. And this is not just a teen fad thing that some teenagers would go through with different types of jewelry. Explain what these bracelets are, where you get them, and what they mean to you.
I absolutely love these bracelets. They're from a foundation and website called Never Take It Off. It was originally created by Juliet Sims and her brother. They have a lot of artists, especially ones that I love, and what they do is they sit down, they draw a logo, and they create fashion lines or bracelet lines in which they have specific meanings. A lot of the bracelets will have been named after a song, lyrics from a song, and each bracelet comes with a vow from the audience, or from the artist. The vow is something that you can take when you tie on the bracelet, or you can create your own. It's something that the artist takes whenever they make the bracelets. I have bracelets from Juliet Sims, Andy Black, Kelly Quinn, Remington Leaf, and Ash Cocello. I also have some from Nick Martin, which is also another member of Sleeping with Sirens. I want to get more. I plan to get more. I've spent over maybe $120 on the jewelry itself. I have necklaces, I have rings. The bracelets are in fact a never take it off. I tie them with a surgical knot, so they don't really come undone. But I really do love them. They have different meanings. They're named after different songs that I love or I liked. And then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to read the vow out loud or make your own. And after that, you tie on the bracelet, sealing the vow. From what I've heard from other people, the bracelets will last about 5 years. And a lot of the time, if you break a string, you can contact the website and they'll give you another one. But their little saying is the bracelets may not last forever, but the vows do. It's supposed to be a symbolic thing.
And where is the website?
It's online. It's you can search up just Never Take It Off and it comes up. It's on a Shopify website. It's really easy to navigate. They do have a lot of sales. A lot of the time it's 30% off, 50% off, depending on the holiday, or sometimes they'll do some for the artist's birthday or when they go on tour. You can follow them on all social media platforms. at Never Take It Off. And they also do different things for causes. So they have some for the Butterfly Project, which I have some coming in the mail for that one. They also have some for animal abuse. It just depends on the artist. The artist will create a bracelet line based on what they want to support, and it'll be under that cause.
Okay. Well, you've mentioned Andy Black a few times, and who exactly is he?
Andy Black is his stage name for his solo career. Andy Biersack is his stage name for his career within Black Veil Brides. But he's a 28-year-old from Cincinnati, Ohio, who grew up with anxiety, ADHD, depression, and dropped out of high school, moved to LA. His parents helped him with the band. He had a lot of issues during his career. He recently became, not like super recent, but within the past couple years, he married his wife Juliet. They became vegan. They both stopped drinking. They both haven't had a cigarette in a really long time. And it's just like, he'll go through obstacles and he'll overcome them, and just seeing that process as he develops as an artist is also really inspiring.
Speaking of as an artist, you have your own Instagram page where you post the drawings that you do. From my understanding, you've had some feedback from some of these bands that you draw. Is that correct?
It wouldn't necessarily be feedback, but they have been noticed, and those are also pretty great moments of my life.
Tell us about the first time that one of these bands or someone from the band noticed your artwork.
I had drawn a photo relating to Ghost of Ohio with its new release, which is with Andy Black. And I posted the photo on both Instagram and Twitter, and Andy's dad is very into with the audience.
The social media aspect of the band.
So a lot of the band members won't really respond or reply. They don't really get on social media very much, but his dad is very connected with a lot of the audience for the crowd, and he likes to respond to a lot of it, and he's very proud of it, since he republishes a lot of this stuff. So he commented and retweeted one of my photos, and we had gone a little bit back and forth on the thread, and that was really kind of like an awe moment. Yeah, he wasn't the one that I was like intentionally trying to get to see my art, but the fact that he saw it, he thought it was really nice, and like and then he was spreading it was also really cool. A few other times included drawings that I've done of Palaye Royale. They have liked some of the drawings. I did one of Ronnie Radke. He liked the photo. I know I've done one of Eliana, which is Jake Pitts from Black Veil Brides and his wife. And they also liked that photo and retweeted, which is also cool.
So where most celebrities just read or don't even respond to fans, you actually gotten the actual band members to respond, and what was that reaction like? What was your feeling when they acknowledged you and your artwork?
It felt like I existed. When you look at these people, it's hard to think of them as normal people. You know, they're famous, they're rich, they have security, they're important people. To see them kind of step out of that, to see that they have problems, or to see that they see the people that support them, the reason why they're doing all of this stuff, that is also kind of like touching, because it's okay, I'm not just another person in the crowd. they don't see a crowd, they see everybody. They see everybody that's important. Yeah.
So, another aspect of with your never take it off, obviously there'll be times when you will have to take those bracelets off. But you went and did something to make sure that certain things will permanently stay with you and you literally can never take them off. Care to explain some of your tattoos and the meaning behind each one of why you got them?
For me, I've always wanted tattoos. I always knew that I was gonna want tattoos. But what really got me going on what I wanted for my sleeve was my being told as like a senior in high school that I was gonna have to choose where I go, what my major was gonna be, kind of being put in a position where the big decision I make is gonna be the rest of my life. And like every weird teenage girl, I read on Tumblr a quote that really resonated with me. Don't know exactly where it's from, but I'd rather have something that meant something to me when I was young than resent myself because I made a decision that impacted the rest of my life. So a lot of people will get mad or judge like the tattoos that I have, because some of them are band logos, but I know that I haven't hit the lowest point in my life. I know that I think I have, but I know that I haven't because I'm still here. I've still moved forward, and different things have saved me each time, and I want to, when I hit that low point, not have to try to find something to keep going or to just give up. But no matter how upset or depressed I feel, I can look at my arm and every tattoo on there is for me. They all saved me at one point. They meant something to me. My first tattoo was the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows A, and then the word always, which is really big within that fandom. And that's because I've been a big fan of Harry Potter since about 2nd grade when I read the first book. I've reread the entire series every summer since the last book came out. It was something that I could escape to whenever I wasn't feeling okay. It was something I could just dive deep into and live in a different world. My next tattoo session, I got 3 tattoos. I got lyrics from the song Never Give It In by Black Veil Brides, and then the Black Veil Brides logo. That is one song that I had listened to while I was really depressed at a time and contemplating suicide, and it was something that felt not like it was a song, but it was something specifically spoken to me. So I wanted to always remember the chorus that tells me not to give in.
And what are those words?
It says, when your life feels lost, fight against all odds, never give in, never back down. That's something that has kind of stuck with me since 2010 when the album We Stitch These Wounds came out. Gonna do a little promotion quick. They're revamping that album for the 10-year anniversary, and I'm super hyped about that. One of the other tattoos I got during that session was just the words, live for yourself. It's something that I can see while I'm driving, while I'm walking. It's on my inner forearm. And for me, it was just whenever I don't think I can keep going, it's just I don't need to live for other people. I don't need to live for anything or anyone else but myself. I can't keep going unless I'm willing to keep going. That one really made sense to me a lot because mental health has been romanticized. I've seen girls who cut because they want a boyfriend. There was the cut for Zayn when One Direction broke up, which I thought was really stupid. There's just a bunch of people who are doing things because they think it'll get them a boyfriend, or it gives a different outcome than the reason that people who cut for an actual mental health do.
And we'll pick that up right now when we come back. We're going to take another short break. Break.
Lost inside.
Welcome back to Lost Inside. I am your host, Max Power. And again, we're here with my daughter, Gabby. When we last left, we were talking about people who were doing things for attention and the romanticize of mental health afflictions. I know a lot of things have people, the 13 Reasons Why with Netflix, that certainly did propel suicide in a romantic aspect. People were at a point of thinking, oh, it's cool to have depression or bipolar or any other mental afflictions that are out there. As somebody who lives on a day-to-day basis with depression and bipolar, and again, I am a 4-time suicide survivor, suicide attempt survivor. You mentioned that some people were cutting because it was a thing online. I believe you said cutting for Zayn. As somebody who actually used to cut, how did that make you feel that people were doing this without really thinking about the consequences or thinking about what leads people to that point?
My first reaction to it was anger. I was mad, I was upset. But then it made me see how ignorant and inconsiderate my generation has become, which I find quite ironic, because of how sensitive and just how sensitive they are to every little thing. It became a belief of mine to just simply be a person who says, you do you. That's your own body, it's your own. You want to think that it's cool to do that, fine. That is completely up to you. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to sit here and criticize you for something that I did, although our reasons are very different for starters. But I was upset about it, and when I do get the opportunity, I do educate people about how it's not okay to do that. I also thought it was really hypocritical because of the people who did do the whole cut for Zayn were also people who had said things to me about going to kill myself or saying I should cut myself. Just the basic bully type thing, where I think I was in the locker room when I was changing for karate and someone had saw my cuts and were saying that I was a pathetic attention whore. And then a couple months later, here they are crying and tutting for Zayn and hoping that that will put the band back together, which I thought was kind of ridiculous because these are their own people. They can choose what they want to do. They're going to break up. It's going to be for their own reasons.
Now, one thing I'm an adamant that I'm always saying is that this generation has it a lot easier than versus my generation, where in the 80s and the early 90s I was told to hide your problems, that we were not allowed to have problems, that we just had to suck it up and move on and deal with it, and only rich people were allowed to see therapists and things of that nature. We have come a long way from those days, but we still have a major way to go to ending this stigma of mental health, and how people just immediately think there's something wrong with you if you say you have one of these mental health afflictions. But yet, compared to any other medical things, such as if a family member was to get cancer or leukemia, something medically, nobody blames that person for catching that or developing that medical issue. But yet, when it comes to mental health, people have this stigma of we choose to have these things. And they're starting to find out now that it is genetically hereditary, and unfortunately for me, that was a big hit for me when I first realized that you were inheriting some of the things that I had. And I can say that the depression and the bipolar and dealing with the suicidal thoughts, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And for me personally, I went through a very depressive state. In fact, the last time that I was fighting my battles of getting to that edge of suicide was because I figured perhaps you would be better off and you would not get as bad as I have if I wasn't around. Fortunately, I learned that's not the case. You helped me to realize that when dealing with mental health issues, and that we don't really want to talk about it a lot. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that we're the only ones going through this. I never forced you to talk. I would just tell you what I went through, and then you would open up and tell me that yes, you're feeling the same things or not. So we're of the mindset of helping others through our personal experience, the things that we've gone through. For somebody who is feeling that they are wanting to cut themselves, or they are getting to that point of feeling suicidal, what would you tell them? Just what experience would you share with them to let them know that they're not alone?
I think for the cutting aspect, there's an amount of pictures going around where there were different frontmen of bands that I listened to that were holding posters that said "Wrist are for bracelets, not cutting."
What was that?
Wrist are for bracelets, not cuts.
Okay.
So I think that's when I started wearing a lot more bracelets. Like I said, with the never take it off bracelets, there are things that I won't take off, and I can run my hand along them and then remember why I stopped in the first place. But I think that helped. The thing that helped me stop was telling myself tomorrow. Every time I felt it, I would just tell myself tomorrow. Whether that was tomorrow sucked, I did, or what if there was something better for tomorrow? Just kind of going through and living 24 hours at a time. That kind of got me to slow down, I guess, or just stop. And then, despite everybody else finding things that I loved, finding out when bands I liked had concerts, closest one to me, book it. And I had to go. Right? And I think I still use that method now when life feels like shit and I don't want to keep going. I just keep telling myself tomorrow.
So you said the bands and you booked the concerts. We are in Houston, Texas, and Texas is such a large state that Houston is basically an hour away from Houston. You can be on one side of Houston and drive to the other side on the highway, and it'll take you an hour to get there. So, how many of these concerts have you attended, and how many of them were actually in Houston, and how many were out of Houston?
One. One was actually in Houston, and that was when I went to go see Panic at the Disco at the rodeo. I saw Andy Black in San Antonio.
And for those of you who don't know, San Antonio is basically a 2.5 to 3 hour drive outside of Houston.
It was 4 for me because I had to pick up people. I was the designated driver and I was picking up people, and that added about almost an hour, and then stopping because they can't hold it for the restroom. But we drove there the day of the concert. We scoped out where the venue was at, found out where we could park. We checked into the hotel, got food, and then went back to the venue, and I made them wait outside 5 hours before the show started. And that was like a mild camp out. We were able to see the show, stay the night, and then we drove back the next day. I also went for the Rockstar Disrupt Festival where I saw 10 different bands play. That was outer Houston, so it was like the Woodlands area.
Okay, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about Gabby's future. I'm going to brag a little bit as a proud father. My daughter just graduated high school, and she's on her way to college. I am kicking her out of the house. Welcome back to Lost Inside, the podcast. I'm your host, Max Power. I'm here with my daughter, Gabby. During the break, she mentioned that we forgot to finish talking about the tattoos. So before we continue on about her leaving and going off to college and what she's going to do with college and how that has a lot to do with her mental health and the mental health of others, go ahead and finish telling us about your tattoos. What are the other tattoos that you have?
My tattoos are important to me. Thank you very much.
As are mine. I have a few that have to deal with mental health and those things. So go ahead, tell us what the rest of your tattoos are.
For the same session that I got with the Live For Yourself and the Black Belt Brides tattoo, I also got an anchor that says Be Your Own Anchor. Cheesy as it is, I also got it from a TV show called Teen Wolf, which is a really good TV show. You should watch it. In that, the characters who are these wolves have to deal with controlling their anger and kind of finding something to stay human And one of the characters, Melissa, tells her son that he needs to be his own anchor, that it's gonna hurt, that everything hurts, that he's gonna fall in love, he's gonna have a heartbreak, and it's gonna happen over and over and over again. But he needed to be his own anchor. And that is something that has stuck with me since. And I got another session a couple months later, right before I graduated, or right after I graduated, around that time. And it was another 3 tattoos, one of them being a blue and green butterfly. That one is for the Butterfly Project. Instead of continuously drawing butterflies to stop cutting as symbolic meaning, I got one tattooed. And for me, it represents everything that ever meant something to me. So if I cut, then it metaphorically kills a butterfly, which hurts everything that ever meant anything to me. I also got a heart with 2 crosses in it. That is the symbol that Andy drew for his logo for Never Take It Off, which also got spread around because Never Take It Off retweeted that photo too, which was also really cool. The other tattoo I got during that session was the logo for Palaye Royale. They also retweeted and liked the photo, which was really awesome. But I absolutely love their logo. It's something that's very calming and complex. It looks like a bunch of squiggles. But it's really fun to trace over when I'm feeling anxious. It's very calming to draw continuously on my hands, which is why I got it in a place where I could trace it with my finger all the time.
And for full disclosure, Palaye Royale is the artist who I've stolen the intro to one of their songs, and that is what you hear between intros are Lost Inside. So go ahead and continue.
You should definitely check out Palaye Royale. Kind of do another shout out thing. Palaye Royale is a great band. Remington Leith is an amazing singer. I got into more and more philosophy because of Emerson Barrett, which is their drummer. It's really cool. And Seb and his fiance have officially now are engaged, which is also really great. They're amazing. You should definitely check them out. The band plays as the soundtrack for American Satan, which is also a really good movie that goes into a lot of the philosophical concept of the stereotype rock music being devil music, which talks about a lot of it has a lot of quotes from different artists who were in the rock industry who said things along the lines of the devil showing up, and that's how they made their careers. Okay, I'm done with my shout out.
Okay. Let's go to your education. Again, when I was in school, we didn't have counselors that we could talk to about depression or anything that we were feeling mental health wise. Something that recently just happened here in Texas, the legislation has passed where it's going to make it mandatory for all schools in Texas to offer some kind of course in understanding mental health and learning to deal with it. Here in the Houston Independent School District, what was your first encounter with a counselor talking about mental health, and what was that first conversation like for you?
Very awkward. The first time I ever talked to an actual counselor in HISD was I got in trouble because I was drawing a dream that I had just continuously had, and it just happened to be I found somebody who I couldn't distinguish the face of hanging from a tree in a cemetery, and the teacher saw my sketch, got concerned, and I was in like 5th grade. And then I had to sit down and talk with that counselor, which was very awkward. I don't remember the conversations very much, but she made me sit really close to her, which also made me feel really awkward. Other than that, I hadn't had a interaction with the counselor until my 8th grade year, when I had to talk with the people from CIS. Yeah, that's how you say it. And a therapist or psychologist from the Pelchin came to the school once a week, and I had to see her. It helped a little. They seemed more like they understood versus like people who were just saying what they had to say that was textbook. They kind of let me just talk about what was happening, and we would talk about steps to move forward. When I got to high school, we didn't have a counselor or a psychologist. I had talked to one of my deans about getting one, and my sophomore year, was it my sophomore year? Might have been I think it was sophomore year. It was sophomore year. Sorry. My sophomore year, we got a licensed psychologist at the school, and I saw her once a week, every week for 3 years, besides summer. And it wasn't just like, how are you feeling, or how does that make you feel? It was, okay, we're gonna break down what's actually happening. There was a lot of like, but why questions to get down to the actual core of everything. And it was also a lot of not just me talking. She would also tell me about like things that she could connect to. I remember telling her about a fender bender I got, in which I had freaked out, and she told me about her first car accident and how she wasn't home, and just her experience, and it kind of connects in a way that you just like, okay, these are problems that other people have too.
Now, you did do something in high school that I'm actually very proud of you for doing this. You got psychology into a school that did not have it before. You were one of the main people fighting for this. What was that experience like?
I went to an all-STEM school, so it was very much tech-based and science-based rather than humanities. And a friend of mine and I both really wanted to do psychology, and he knew that one of the teachers was licensed to teach psychology. So he asked the principal if he got a petition with enough people, would we be able to have the class? And then the principal said that she would like think about it. So I was one of the first people to sign the petition, and I helped get word out. We got enough people to sign the petition, and then they offered the course my junior year.
Now, when they first offered the course, though, you were not in that course.
Oh, I was mad about that. I had requested, because they had us fill out what classes we wanted to take the year before, and then you come in during the summer to confirm the classes. And they said that because I wanted computer science, because I couldn't get into the AP computer science, they had to put me in a regular computer science. And that was the only period that they had psychology open that didn't conflict with my core classes. So I told them, well, I'm not going to be put in a non-AP class when I can take an AP class for a class that I fought for. And I made them change my schedule. so I could have psychology.
All right, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the psychology program that my daughter pushed for and got into, and the direction that it's taken her now. We'll be right back. Right back.
Lost inside.
Welcome back. You're listening to Lost Inside, the podcast. I'm your host, Max Power. We're here with my daughter, Gabby. We left off with you getting into the psych program in your high school. I want to say that, and I use this as a disclaimer in the books, Lost Inside and Let It Be, that I'm not a fan of psychologists, but I've had my own experiences. I have my own reasons as to why I'm not a fan of psychologists and the power that they are given and abuse. But of course, I'm not a person who blankets everybody based on the actions of a few. And I do mention that there are some that I don't have a problem with. My personal issue was I felt I was being condescended when every single time I mentioned something, I was told, "Oh, I know how you feel. I understand." And these people do not have any mental afflictions whatsoever. Their experience based on what they've read in a book, to the point where I had a 28-year-old professor of psychology, when we were discussing depression, tell me, and I was 40 at the time, that while I'm the professor, I know what it's like, and the person has nothing to do with any kind of depression or bipolar or any mental afflictions whatsoever, telling me this. And my response, being the angry person that I am at times, is that, well, I'm the one that's been living with it for 40 years, so I have the more experience. With that being said, yes, I do acknowledge some psychologists, because there are some psychologists that have mental afflictions, and that is the reason why they actually went into psychology. One, to better understand what they are going through and to be able to help others. So with that said, what are you going to college for, Gabby?
Psychology.
And what do you want to do with psychology?
Become a psychologist. That's the blanket term. I also never really liked psychologists until I met the one that I went through in high school with for 3 years, and that kind of made me see that I didn't have to be that I could do what she did. And I went to a psychology summer camp that was like a week long at Gettysburg, and that's what really interested me in the topic. I've always been a very curious child and a very curious person. I love learning about people, their cultures, the way they think, why they think a specific way, and how that kind of impacts them, their character, what they do, and then their future and their families, and how things that can become genetic or can be inherited, or things that go through. I like branching the things that are sociological, psychological, and philosophical together. I love questioning why. So I felt that I helped a lot of people, whether it's like just talking to them, letting them talk to me, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to help. I wanted to be the person that I needed when I was younger. So I took the psychology class. I really loved my teacher. I still talk to him now, and I'm happy that he is finishing his PsyD.
And what are some of the things that he's done and included you in even once you finished his class?
During his class, he let me we had a lot of private conversations during lunch and during his free hours, just about psychology and my progression in it, and like his experience in the courses, and his own personal experiences. And then after I took the course the following year, we continued with our psychology club, in which we changed how we did it. Instead of him doing it, I did it, and I led the group in different discussions. We talked about various types of things. We broke down serial killer cases. We broke down things to the core concepts. We talked about the differences between psychopaths and sociopaths. We did a lot of like in-depth dive for psychology, and I kept in touch with him. And he was at the time a part-time student at UHD Clear Lake in their psych program for PsyD. And he had to give a presentation on psychologists in schools, and he invited me to go with him to see that presentation, which was also very enlightening to see that over almost a decade, the things still haven't changed. The numbers have been the same since 2011, 2012.
And which numbers are those?
That you have one psychologist on a campus maybe once or twice a week. And one psychologist is spread to 2 to 3 different schools. It just shows that there is a lack of psychologists, and there's also a lack of bilingual psychologists, whether it's ASL, Japanese, Spanish, those being the popular languages in different areas.
And for our listeners, to give you understanding, Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States, and the Houston Independent School District is the largest school district in the state of Texas. With that said, like she said, it's one in how many?
It's one psychologist for almost every 3 schools. The psychologist that I talked to during my high school year, I know she did 3 schools for I think 2 years, and then she only did 2 schools this past year. But she was only there half days usually, and it was twice a week.
And this is something that needs to be addressed. The governor's taken the first step, and I'm glad that the legislation was just passed. But more needs to be done. It really does. Just to give you an idea, we're just talking about the Houston Independent School District. There's other school districts surrounding. There's well over 100 high schools in the Harris County area alone. Really, way more than that. And not everybody gets that opportunity. So we have these kids that are not getting the help that they need. Again, when I was going through high school, none of this was available. Now it's slowly growing. I project maybe by the time my grandkids are in high school that hopefully those numbers will change. But getting back to the presentation that your teacher gave, and you got to get to go with him, what was some of the conversations you had with the other faculty, his teachers? I know a lot of times when I was in high school, people couldn't believe that I was in high school, but that was because of the way I looked. I had the face of a 30-year-old when I was 14. You're a little different. People can't believe that you're just 18, about to be 19. But yet when they talk to you, they think that you're in your late 20s. So, what was some of the conversations that you had with your teacher's teachers?
It is actually very funny because I'm very short and I have a very chubby face. I look very young, but I don't speak that way oftenly when I'm talking to people that are older that I'm actually enjoying and having an in-depth conversation with. I talked to my teacher's professor about the program that he ran, about the lack of psychologists in schools, about how it's possible to get more bilingual, how if psychology was offered in more places that people would have more interest in it. And we were just talking a little bit about different psychological concepts. And he asked me when I was going to start grad school. And I told him in maybe 6 years, 4 to 6 years. And he just looked at me and I said, no, I'm still a senior in high school. I'm a pupil under my teacher, and my teacher came over and was like, yeah, she's my student. I brought her along. She's one of my favorites, which I like to call out. I'm his favorite, definitely his favorite. That was a really large argument amongst my friends who also took psychology about who was the favorite. I'm definitely the favorite. And the teacher was like, how old are you? And at the time, I was recently turned 18 around that time. So I was like, yeah, no, I just turned 18. And he just like looked at me, and one of the other professors was like, I thought you were maybe a senior in college, ready to graduate your undergrad. And I was like, no, haven't done that yet. No.
So now you're about to be a freshman in college. Your mother and I will be taking you upstate, up the country, to the cold part of the northern United States. We won't be naming names, but what is it that you are hoping to do in your 4 years at college? What is it that you're going to be studying? Why you're choosing and what you want to do with it? You've already said you're going to be studying psychology. So what is your goal with psychology? What is it that you want to do with it?
I want to help as many people as I can. I want to show people that it's okay not to be okay, and that you don't need to feel ashamed because you're not okay. That sometimes, yeah, you need to sit and cry, or you need to scream into the world, or you need to sit there and draw 30 different drawings, which I do frequently. So I'm planning on not only majoring in psychology, I'm going to be attempting to do a double major and a minor. I want to double major in psychology and art, and then minor in a Japanese language, so I can be multilingual and talk to several people, and have that ability to be there for people who don't fluently speak English, or who aren't comfortable speaking English, or who prefer speaking in a different native language. I want to learn several languages to be able to do that, but I want to also travel to see how mental health is treated in different countries, more than just like looking it up. I want to be able to actually experience how it is. I want to maybe even possibly try to be a psychologist in different countries to provide that help, just to kind of get a feel of how the world is evolving in that aspect. I want to include art because I know art has helped me a lot, and sometimes it's easier to get somebody to draw something and understand that drawing rather than just trying to get them to speak words that they don't understand. They don't understand how to put it into meaning. Art can be a little complicated just because there's the perception of the eye of the beholder, but knowing what I know, knowing the experience that I have, I think I can see a little deeper into artwork, but usually for me, it's a little easier to explain what I was going through while I was drawing something than explain what I was going through when I was having a breakdown.
And how do you do that through your art? Like you said, art is in the eye of the beholder. I have some very talented artists in my family. I was actually blessed with the art form of writing. I can express my feelings through writing. Where a lot of times people who do have mental afflictions have a hard time expressing themselves, especially to their caregivers who do not have these mental afflictions. I know for me that when I first started writing out some of my darker experiences, other people were able to read that and say, this is exactly how I feel. So I'm able to express not only my feelings, but the feelings of others who go through the same thing that I go through, who don't know how to express it. Where I can take words, I'm amazed at the way that you're able to do that same thing, but through drawings. I can barely draw a stick figure. If my life depended on it, I would not be here anymore. But some of your artwork is really amazing, and that's not just a father bragging about his daughter. I show it to other people, and they're truly amazed. And the amount of followers that you're getting on your own. So that shows that people really do like your work, and they are sharing it, and they are using it to express themselves. How do you feel about people using your artwork to express how they feel, or how would you help others to get them to do drawings? Because like for me, that would be very scary for me to try to draw something.
I had a problem once where I had artist block and I couldn't draw anything, and someone told me, well, draw how you feel. Doesn't need to be right, doesn't need to be accurate, but drawing what you feel that moment in time is what makes it accurate, or what makes it right, what makes it make sense. So whether it's like drawing a distorted image because I don't feel straight, like I don't feel there, I feel like someone has brushed the water and the image is completely distorted. I don't feel whole. Or whether it's coming to terms with like the different things I have, and then understanding that so drawing things like dark rooms, or demons and people, and that kind of like I'm half and half aspect. It's easy for me to, this is how I feel, and people can just, sometimes I do it so people can take a drawing and explain it how they perceive it and how they want to perceive it, because that also helps. But I do my drawings to put it out there. It's something that I love, and if somebody can use it to help them, then that's amazing. Some of the most recent drawings I've done are of people that have helped me in my life. I've done a lot of fan art a lot recently. Done some art promoting Ghost of Ohio. I've done art promoting Palaye Royale, just the sibling bond that they have. And it's just it's helping me draw the people that helped me. Kind of helps. And also helps with like style and technique. I've also I did a lot of lyric drawings at first, in which lyrics that stood out to me the most, or things that I would draw, There's one song called Drown by Bring Me the Horizon, and one of the lyrics is Don't Let Me Drown. And I shadowed my hand. I traced over the shadow. I drew my hand, my bracelets, my watch, everything I had on that hand on the time, drowning, and it's reaching out, asking for that help. I've drawn different song lyrics with images that I connect with those lyrics, and that's what other people kind of choose to like relate to.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and end here. What would be your final thoughts, advice, or somebody who is either in middle school or in high school who has all these emotions hitting them all at once? We all know that that is one of the roughest times in our life is that adolescence transitioning into adulthood. What advice would you give as somebody who's just graduating high school and getting thrown into the deep end of the pool, into the real world, working and having to go to school, and this is the beginning of the rest of your life? What advice would you give anybody who's experiencing these mental health afflictions and not sure how to go about it or feeling scared? What would you say to them?
Couple of things. One, no matter how much you feel alone, I can guarantee you aren't. You just need to find the people that you really connect with, that you can talk to, that experience the same things or understand what you're feeling and what you're going through. Another thing is tomorrow. Tomorrow can be shitty, tomorrow can be great. Tomorrow you can walk and stumble upon your favorite person in the world. Tomorrow is what you need to remember. At that point when you are hitting a really low point, just say tomorrow. Either tomorrow's going to be a good day, tomorrow's going to be a bad day, tomorrow's going to be the day you do it, or tomorrow's something great's going to happen. Just give yourself tomorrow. And keep telling yourself that until you can say, give yourself a year, give yourself another month. Just keep going until you can increase that time of tomorrow. And then another thing was make a list. Write down things that make you happy. And then look at your life and adjust accordingly.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Lost Inside is written and produced by me, Max Power. The music used in the show is from the song How Do You Do by Palaye Royale, a band that has helped my daughter to deal with her mental health afflictions. I do not own the rights to any of the music used here. Thank you for listening, and until next time, to quote two wise dudes, be excellent to each other and party on.